Good afternoon. I am Regina Cooper Ali with AAA Mid-Atlantic. I'm the Public and Government Affairs Manager representing AAA in both Maryland and Washington, D.C. And on behalf of AAA and all of our fantastic partners here today, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We are honored to be joined today by State Senator Jeff Wallstriker, State Delegate Ann Healy, who have been staunch supporters and lead sponsors of move over legislation for many years in Annapolis. We are also honored to have steadfast traffic safety partners with us today, including Maryland Department of Transportation Secretary Jim Ports, MDTA Police Chief Kevin Anderson, Maryland MVA Administrator Christine Nizer, Maryland Transportation Authority Executive Director William Pines, Mdot State Highway Administrator Tim Smith. I also know that we have the Highway Safety Office Director out there, Tim, I'm sorry, Tim, you were initially on my list, I'm sorry, Tim Kearns, not to be forgotten. Deputy Director Myra Riemann is out there hiding. And certainly we have representatives here from our state police, our Maryland Transportation Authority police, our state highway emergency response teams, our AAA response teams, and we are certainly happy to have all of you here to help us talk about slow down, move over, and why we're here today. Sadly, despite every state in the country having some form of a slow down or move over law on the books, we are still witnessing time and time again that our law enforcement officers, our first responders, our tow truck providers, and even drivers are being killed at the side of the road. Hundreds of people are killed and thousands are injured every year in crashes involving stopped or disabled vehicles at the roadside. According to a study of federal crash stats, it is estimated that 566 people were killed and 14,371 were injured each year between 2016 and 2018, and crashes on all types of roadways involving a disabled vehicle in which visibility was likely a factor. This year, in an effort to further strengthen Maryland's slow down, move over law, lawmakers passed Senate Bill 147, or Chapter 382. This bill was sponsored by Senator Jeff Wallstriker, who also serves as vice chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. We also had a House version of this bill sponsored by Delegate Ann Healy, who's also here with us today. This bill was AAA Mid-Atlantic's primary legislative priority this year, and we applaud the Maryland General Assembly for passing this important piece of legislation. We applaud Governor Larry Hogan for signing the bill into law to protect drivers at the roadside. And again, we're especially grateful to Senator Wallstriker and Delegate Healy for their leadership in sponsoring this life-saving measure. I'm going to turn it over now to Delegate Healy to give us a brief welcome, and then followed by Delegate Healy will be Senator Wallstriker, who will tell us a little bit more about the law and why it was important. He will be followed by Secretary Jim Ports, who will introduce a special guest speaker, and then we will follow up again with Chief Colonel Kevin Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I need the Barbara Mikulski stand. Thank you, everybody, for being here and coming to beautiful Prince George's County on this wonderful fall day to celebrate the expansion of the Move Over, Slow Down law that we've had on the books for a while. I was the author of the original bill, which was for first responders, and we've expanded it. But this is the ultimate expansion because it will protect ordinary drivers who are stuck on the side of the road, and so many have lost their lives over the years. I want particularly to thank AAA for all the publicity that this law has brought to the issue. Just driving here today along Route 50, I noticed that this law is already having an effect, even though it doesn't go into legal effect until Saturday. 2 places there were trucks that broken down on the side of the road, and people were slowing down as they got to those places. So it's already working. I'm very proud to be a part of this, and I want to thank everyone for being here. Particularly want to thank the Department of Transportation for coming out in such broad numbers. I mean, all the agencies of your department are here because this is a really important bill and it will save lives on Maryland roads. And I'm so proud to be a partner with Senator Wallstriker, who actually was the sponsor of the Senate version of this bill, the one that actually passed both houses. And so I'm delighted to be here to just say thank you for paying attention to this and making it work. Senator?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Wallstriker. I'm a state senator representing Montgomery County and the vice chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Let me start by thanking Delegate Ann Healy, the original sponsor of this important legislation. We're here in her county, and her hard work throughout the years and as a champion of road safety has been so instrumental in what brought us here today. Let me also thank Larry Hogan, the Hogan administration, and his executive branch. Over the last 8 years, the legislature and the executive branch have been partners in dramatically increasing road safety throughout Maryland. And that means road safety for all users. It means bicyclists, motorcyclists, drivers, first responders, tow truck drivers, police officers, those with disabilities. The Slow Down, Move Over law is one final piece in making sure all road users can be safe here in Maryland. All the bill does is that come Saturday, if you come across a disabled vehicle of any type on any road, you should move over to provide that vehicle with enough space that they can be safe and not have to be worried about risking their lives. If you can't move over, you're moving too quick, or there's just not enough room, then slow down. Make sure you're driving at a speed that's safe enough that you don't startle the driver who might be disabled on the side of the road or otherwise pose a danger to them. Not far from here in Laurel last year, there was an officer who was struck while directing traffic around another accident. And in my county, in Montgomery County, there was an officer directing traffic at a high school graduation who was recently struck. This is happening all too frequently to tow truck drivers, to our first responders, to our police officers, and to everyday drivers. All of us will one day be disabled on the side of the road. And when that happens, we need to know our fellow drivers are going to act safely around us. The Slow Down, Move Over law helps ensure that that happens. It's not directed primarily towards enforcement, although if you disobey this law in a flagrant way, you will get a ticket. It's primarily directed to education so that the culture of driving can change and people can look out for their fellow drivers, including drivers stuck on the roadside. And with that, let me thank you again and thank the Hogan administration and in particular Secretary Jim Ports, the Secretary of our Department of Transportation. He's going to speak to us now about this important bill. Thank you again.
Thank you. Great job, Jeff. Well, I just want to first thank Senator Wallstriker and Delegate Healy. Delegate Healy and I were freshman delegates together, and it's just a pleasure to see both of you and your commitment to safety, because I'll tell you what, we have two police forces, and I can't tell you how many times we get a police officer hit, and each and every time it's just tragic. And we need to protect the ones that protect us. So good afternoon, everyone. Just for the record, my name is Jim Ports. I'm Secretary of Maryland Department of Transportation, and Mdot is proud to support law enforcement officers and all emergency workers, and now every citizen on the side of the road. From first responders to road utility workers, tow truck drivers, they all play an important role in keeping us all safe on Maryland roadways. These selfless individuals risk their lives to help motorists, and we all share the responsibility to make sure that they have a safe work environment. You kind of want to treat them like it's your mother or your father or your relative out there working. Governor Hogan is doing his part. Just this morning, the governor proclaimed October Move Over Awareness Month. And moving over or slowing down isn't much to ask to help keep everyone safe on our roadways. Today, Mdot stands with AAA to remind all drivers that Maryland's Move Over law is expanding once again, and it's time for all motorists on the side of the road to be safe and secure. Starting October 1st, when you see any stopped, standing, or parked vehicle displaying warning lights, you must either move over or slow down, as Senator said. This expanded law will help protect law enforcement, roadside workers, emergency responders, now anyone who is on the side of the road and in one of our travel lanes. Distracted, impaired, aggressive driving, as well as excessive speed are leading causes for crashes throughout Maryland every year. In 2021, there were 563 fatalities in Maryland. That's just not a number, folks. That's a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, niece, nephew, neighbor, members of our community. These are all people. It's important to understand they are not numbers. So far this year, we've experienced 350 fatalities, and all these numbers and all these folks who pass away is unacceptable. Preventable crashes keep all of those that I just talked about, the mothers, brothers, sisters, from returning from home each and every night. Starting today, Mdot and AAA are launching an 8-week Move Over campaign to educate motorists about the latest change in Maryland's law. So please do your part. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, tell a coworker, tell a family member about this law. We need everyone to move over or slow down. We know things happen, minor crash, emergency incident, or car trouble. You might find yourself on the side of the road, as Senator said. Everybody's going to find themselves in that position sometime. Therefore, I'm going to give you some key reminders that you should understand if it ever happens to you. 1, prepare. Assess the situation. Use good judgment and stay vigilant. First and foremost, be prepared. Make sure your vehicle is good condition before you travel. If you're on the road and have an emergency, assess the situation and determine if you can continue driving to a parking lot or some safe place off the road as far as you can out of traffic. Depending on your location, pound 77 will connect you to SHA's Coordinated Highway Action Response Team, known as CHART, or the Maryland State Police or MDTA Police. If you can stay in your vehicle, activate the hazard lights, remain buckled, face forward while you wait for emergency responders. If it isn't safe or possible to stay in your vehicle, evaluate the situation to determine a safe time to exit the vehicle and move as quickly as you can away from the road. Get behind an embankment, traffic barrier, or guardrail. Every situation is different, but by identifying options before they happen and using common sense, you're more likely to put yourself in a safe situation. The initial Move Over law went into effect in 2010, but we're continuing to see crashes involving emergency responders, law enforcement officers, and motorists on the side of the road. Since 2019, we had 38 of our CHART vehicles hit by motorists while responding to incidents. And let me tell you something. As Transportation Secretary, the one call you never want to get is that a member of your team has been hit while doing their job. As bad as it is for me, I know it's much worse for the family members and friends. They don't want to get that call either. So look at the wrecked CHART vehicle behind me, actually the picture of this vehicle. And this vehicle is Richard Reeves' CHART vehicle that he was in. And I just want to also say, we had a fire truck hit the other day. I don't know if y'all have seen, fire trucks have more lights than a Christmas tree. I don't know how anyone could hit a fire truck on the side of the road or one of these emergency vehicles with an arrow at the top pointing to move over. But just a few weeks ago, Richard had an extremely close call while on the job. An impaired driver struck his CHART vehicle, which was parked on the shoulder with his emergency lights on. Richard joined CHART 2 years ago. Before that, he was with AAA for 9 years. So he's been out there helping motorists for a long time. And he knows the dangers of working along a busy highway. And that's why this law is so important, to protect workers like Richard and to protect every person on the side of the road. We all have to be aware and obey the Move Over law. So we're thankful that Richard is safe, and we hope hearing his story will encourage everyone to move over and keep everyone safe. Richard, I'll invite you up here to share your experience.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Secretary Ports. Hopefully I won't be a nervous mess up here. This is all still very fresh in my mind. My name is Richard Reeves. I'm an emergency response technician with Maryland Department of Transportation. 2 weeks ago, I was working the night shift when I was dispatched to check on a disabled vehicle on 83, right at the Baltimore City County line. 3:45 in the morning. I parked behind the vehicle that I was looking for, activated my emergency equipment, raised my aero board, exited my truck. I approached the car that I was looking for, determined it was unattended, had a flat tire, someone had been there, tried to change the tire, decided they couldn't, and they left. I walked back to my truck, started filling out an unattended sticker to place on the back window of the vehicle. I was standing on the passenger side of my truck at the hood when I heard the dreaded sound of rumble strips coming up behind me. We hear that sound on a daily basis, but this one was different. Something told me I need to get out of the way. I immediately ran up the embankment behind me to watch an Infiniti QX80, one of the largest SUVs on the road, slam into the back of my truck. As quickly as I thought, oh no, like I said, I ran up and watched it happen. As soon as I gathered myself, I alerted my dispatch, my supervisor, that my truck was struck, but that I was outside and okay, and then immediately returned to my job. Despite what had just happened, there was still a motorist to assist. There was a crash scene to protect. I approached the side of the Infiniti where I found a driver who was conscious, alert, but very disoriented. Strong smell of alcohol coming from his vehicle. What felt like a lifetime, but I'm sure was only a few minutes. The fire department arrived. My supervisor showed up. And I was able to finally breathe. Thankfully, that driver was also okay. He was transported to the hospital. I haven't heard anything about the situation since then. 2 weeks ago, my life flashed before my eyes. The stranded motorists chart help day in and day out, have families. I have a family. While I am fortunate that I was able to return home that morning and let my family, my sister, my father, my 3 nieces and nephew know that I was okay, it could have turned out very different. I've spoken to a lot of people about the incident, and they say, well, how would the move over law have changed that? Well, it probably wouldn't have. The driver was likely impaired, but this same situation can happen to anybody, whether it's an impaired driver, a distracted driver, someone that's simply reaching into their passenger seat to grab an item. Most don't have the large trucks that we have to protect them. If my truck wasn't in the position that it was, if there was somebody out with that vehicle changing a tire, the result would have been devastating. At the end of the day, we all want to get home safely. While move over, slow down might sound like just another law, it's not. It's a lifesaver. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Regina said, I'm Colonel Kevin Anderson, Chief of the Maryland Transportation Authority Police, and I also represent Maryland Chiefs and Sheriffs as the head and the chair of the Traffic Safety Committee for the state of Maryland. You know, Richard, I know it's tough for you to share that story, but we appreciate it. And why we appreciate it, it puts a humanistic story to what happens out on our highways in not only our state, but across the country every day. And yes, by slowing down and moving over, that could have been prevented. Certainly, a driver being impaired is very dangerous, but the ability for that person to move over or slow down, this incident may not have occurred. Furthermore, it may have allowed us in law enforcement not to concentrate on those violations, but go after those individuals who choose, and that's right, it's a choice to drive impaired. It's not just a happenstance. When drivers go out there and drive on our highways and exceed the posted speed limits, impaired, distracted, that's one component of that behavior. But failing to move over while those things are occurring just create havoc. As Richard just talked about, you saw a crash that occurred that required additional resources to respond to go out and handle a secondary crash scene, which he was already out helping a stranded motorist. And this repeats itself over and over 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Whether it's CHART, whether it's our VRTs at the MDTA, whether it's our police, our troopers, our sheriffs across the state, we're out there to help motorists to get them off the highway safely so we can avoid incidents like this. And moreover, so you can get to where you want to go safely, whether it's school, work, travel, so you can conveniently and effectively get there. Remember, from law enforcement, absolutely, we'll write a citation for failure to move over. There's no doubt about that. And the fine's pretty hefty, $110 and a point on your driver's license. You're involved in one of these crashes as a result of failing to move over, it exponentially goes up. Fines are increased, penalties are increased. So don't be that driver. It's interesting to me that over 13 years of having a piece of legislation out there for emergency responders and tow truck operators on the highway, when you survey, about 84% of Marylanders don't know there's a move over law. We would much rather educate the public and say, be a partner with us, collaborate with us, because traffic safety takes collaboration. It doesn't just take enforcement. All these disciplines that are represented here today, it's because their collaborative efforts do make a difference. And I have to commend our legislators, our senators and our delegates for passing this important piece of legislation, because it doesn't only single out the workers. That's our office every day out there. But the average citizen will also find themselves in a similar situation while traveling on one of our highways. So please, two simple things: slow down and move over. We'll get you there safely, you'll get to your final destination on time, and we'll avoid crashes, and hopefully we will get to where we need to be in Maryland with 0 deaths. Thank you. Gina.
Thank you all so very, very much. I know Richard, we worked together when he was at AAA, and I know it takes a lot of courage to come up here and stand and talk before a group. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Like Chief Anderson said, it really does put a human face to this. And I just can't say enough about how important this law is to all of the people that you see standing here. Part of the reason why we decided to have this here, not only because it was a great spot for our Mdot officials, all of whom are here today, but tragically, as you know, AAA is no stranger to these tragedies as well. At this very building, one of our tow truck providers was struck and killed earlier this year. Anthony Okozie, again, assisting a motorist who had run out of gas at the side of the road during the 4th of July holiday weekend. So we see this time and time again, and we just really want to bring awareness to it. And interestingly enough, last year I partnered with Mdot and SHA and MDTA, and we did a survey, and 90% of the emergency technicians, the law enforcement officers, the EMTs, all of them, 90% practically, had a close call similar to what Richard had. So it's really incumbent upon all of us to pay attention. We're also hopeful that this law will, as it's providing protections to drivers on the side of the road, will be additional protections to our law enforcement officers, to our emergency response technicians who are out there every day trying to keep us all safe and keep us moving. So thank you again, certainly to our partners at Mdot, to Chrissy's an awesome partner with the Maryland Highway Safety Office. We're grateful for the collaboration. Special thank you again to Senator Wallstriker and Delegate Healy, and for all of you, our media partners, for really helping us get this word out that come October 1, this law it applies to everyone. We're hoping that will reduce some of the confusion that some motorists seem to have where this law is concerned, because I think it mystifies all of us that despite every state having some form of this law, people still choose to ignore it or claim they don't know it exists. So we really are grateful for all of you helping us get that message out. Thank you so much. Have a great day.